Hi beautiful souls, it's Tan here again today, and we're talking about the 12th house in astrology, the very last house in our house series. Wow guys, we've come so far, we've shared so much of our experiences, we've learned so much from other people, and we're getting to the end of it. So first of all, I'd like to just say thank you to everyone who's been coming along with this series and have been sharing their experiences so that other people can learn, and then you can also learn from other people, and then I can learn from you as well. And also I'd like to just say that I know I haven't been putting out my videos as I should have, like Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. I was at this event in Singapore. It was like a new age fair, and then I had a booth there, and then I was doing a lot of birth chart readings. So I got kind of busy doing that, and also I've been having a lot of people purchasing video birth chart readings. So that's been keeping me like busy as well. So I'm really sorry if I haven't been putting up as much videos on YouTube as I should be, but I'm gonna get back into it, guys. I'm gonna get back into it. So the 12th house, I call this the house of your transcendence. So in the 11th house, we were mentally and intellectually aware of our interconnectedness with everything in the world and in the cosmos, right? If you've watched that video, you know how I talk about, our consciousness, we're raising our awareness mentally of these things. In the 12th house, we are actually feeling with our heart and our soul the interconnectedness between us, between you, and everything else in the world, in the universe. We feel it here. Whereas we knew it in the 11th house, we feel it in the 12th house. We live it as well. So when this energy is being used correctly, when the 12th house energy is being used correctly, we feel and live the higher self. With the 12th house, there is a need to return back to a state of timelessness, which is the original state of our soul before we came into this human being. It's a different state of our consciousness before we came into this physical body. But again, you never know what that state really is. And that's the mystery of the 12th house. But the thing is that because we really want to be in that state of timelessness, we can't actually be there, because in order to be there, we have to remove, or at least humble, our ego a little bit. And the need or the want to return to that state of timelessness has the ego involved, because when you need something and you want something, the ego's there, right? The ego wants and needs something. If you don't have it, you don't have the ego, then you allow the flow to happen. And when you allow this flow to happen, you get to that state of timelessness that we all have the potential to be with the 12th house. So there are two different types of illusions that can happen, okay? When we are trying to be in touch with the oneness of everything. The first one is when somebody, okay, whether you have planets in the 12th house or not, everybody has a 12th house and a sign there. When somebody really tries hard to dissolve the ego, to the point where the ego has just almost completely been gone. When you do that, and you engage in 12th house manners, activities, without the ego there, you risk being taken advantage of by other people. And it's not nice. You get into this martyr syndrome, where you feel like, I don't have an ego, I'm selflessly giving, but then internally you still feel like I'm being taken advantage of, because when you try to get rid of the ego in that way, the ego is still there because you are so involved in the process of getting rid of the ego. Do you know what I mean? The process of really needing to get rid of the ego is actually part of the ego being involved. Okay? The second illusion is when you are not aware of the fact that you should humble the ego. And this is when we try to use our 12th house placements or planets in the 12th house for our own purposes. For fame, for our own happiness, for our own self-satisfaction. And we'll never get it, because that's not what the 12th house planets or sign is supposed to be used for. When you try to give those planets an identity, planets in the 12th house, when you try to give it an identity, you'll never become content with it, because those planets are not meant to have an identity at all. Especially the sun. If the sun is there, you're not supposed to have an identity, but you're also not supposed to have the ego completely gone. You can't be one extreme or the other. You gotta find the balance. So that's the illusion here of the 12th house, you know, going back and forth from using planets and sign placements are for your own good, but then it's like, oh no, you can't do, I know I can't do that, and then trying to completely use it so overtly selflessly that you get the ego involved in the process of using it selflessly, that it's actually not selfless at all, okay? So the thing here is that both of these illusions have an element of attachment to it. And the thing is that we're not, and the thing is that the 12th house doesn't want you to be detached from objects or material things or any particular thing. It actually wants you to let go of the attachment and be detached from attachment. So you're supposed to learn with 12th house energies how to not be attached to attachment. And it's not about not being attached to a particular thing, object, person, idea, philosophy, but it's the letting go of the attachment from attachment. Okay, I feel like I'm repeating myself, and I think you get what I mean. If the first house, as I mentioned in my first house video, is the moment of your birth, the 12th house is everything else before your birth. It's the things that is between your death and your rebirth. So things like your soul, where your soul was before, you know, if you ever gotten your Akashic records read, you know, that's going to tell you about all those, what's been happening with you, your energy before you came here. Your mother's wound, your mother's pregnancy experience, that's all the 12th house stuff. So it's kind of like the souls that we've carried, the energies that we've carried within past lifetimes or within before we came into our mother's wombs, all that stuff comes into the mother's pregnancy, okay? And planets there and the sign that's there then becomes our unconscious, because it is not, because it came in when we were in our mother's womb, and therefore it is not expressed when we are born. So planets and signs in the 12th house are unconscious, repressed energies that we've carried out with us at the moment before birth, into the moment of our mother's pregnancy, still before birth. And still, when we came out of the mother's womb, when we were born, it is still there in the unconscious, and it didn't manage to manifest fully in the world, and it's not meant to, and you can manifest it fully in the world, but without the two kinds of illusions. And so the 12th house has a lot to do with the collective unconscious, because it is that understanding of the unconscious motivations behind everyone in the world and why they do what they do, and how that, you know, how there's a pattern there. And it's about collective archetypes as well, of, you know, what everybody has that's the same, what everybody has that's different, and what archetypes each person in the world fits into unconsciously. Do you know what I mean? The 12th house is so hard to explain. I'm trying here, guys. I'm trying here. You know, things like what makes everyone suffer? What makes everyone happy? What categories are there that people can fit into? What are the archetypes, the different archetypes that people's psyche can fit into? That's like very much 12th housey stuff, okay? And therefore, if you have planets in the 12th house, you can become a kind of, I mean, depending on the planets, that planet, that part of you is going to become a symbol of the issues and the problems of the collective at that particular time that you were born, because you've embodied a part of the collective in yourself. So you become the symbol for that. That part of you, that part of your psyche becomes a symbol for that thing, okay? So I hope that kind of made some sense. So as a quick summary, the 12th house is the awareness of our ability to feel and live in oneness with everything. And then we go about trying to explore this part of our awareness by merging with timelessness. But we're usually going to be met with two types of illusions. The attachment to overly trying to demolish the ego, or trying to use the ego for selfish reasons without realizing it, of course. So those two extremes is the illusion. And then, you know, that illusion can become the truth of the situation, which is that we need to let go of the attachment to attachments. And when we do that, we can become a true symbol of the collective problems and issues of our time. So this is going to be the last thing that I'll be sharing with you guys about my natal chart. As you know, we do this kind of stuff in the series. And also, I forgot to mention again, if you have any planets in the 12th house, leave them in the comments below. Signs in the 12th house, leave them in the comments below what those signs is, and what has been your experiences with planets, asteroids, or the sign that's ruling your 12th house. So in my chart, I have my 12th house is ruled by Taurus, and I've got my Venus and Taurus in the 12th house, and my Mercury and Gemini conjunct my Venus and Taurus in the 12th house, and then I've got my Jupiter and Gemini conjunct Mercury in the 12th house. So I'm a very 12th housey person. So Venus in the 12th house, in Taurus here, I was someone who grew up thinking that I was ugly. As I mentioned, you know, I've got a lot of stuff in the first house, right? My Chiron conjunct the ascendant, which adds to the fact that I think I'm ugly. So there's that. But anyways, besides from that, I think that this placement also makes someone look better on camera than they do in real life, which, yeah, I've been going through both illusions that we talked about, going through both of these illusions in relationships in my life, because Venus is all about relationships. So there have been times when I was trying to get too much out of relationships and there were too many expectations, so that didn't work. And there were times when I was trying to just be completely egoless in my relationships, and that didn't work because my boundaries were really crossed in those relationships. So there were these two extremes. And the balance I found is that, you know, if I just humble my ego a little bit, what I can actually do is I can find that I can love someone unconditionally for their real flaws, but at the same time, not loving them for flaws that are toxic for me and the relationship, but loving them for flaws that are their own flaws. So yeah, that's, you know, that's unconditional love. And I do feel that I love everybody. That's Venus in the 12th house, right? It's like, you know, the feeling of like not liking somebody and then trying to cut them out of your life, that's something that I can't do. That causes me more like uneasiness inside. But when I accept that my karma with somebody was there, you know, that we worked our karma together, and maybe they can't stay in my life, but at least we worked through our karma, and I can still love them, you know, without them being in my life, that makes me feel okay. That doesn't cause too much disruption inside, because that's kind of like, you know, seeing the bigger perspective of, you know, of love and what love actually is. And yes. Yeah, with Mercury conjunct Venus here, I do like to be engaged with people that I can have like more spiritual conversations with, that I can communicate things of the 12th house with, that I can talk about visions and dreams and things like that. You know, I like to communicate that with people. Yeah, and yes, Mercury here in the 12th house. It's just weird because my ascendant is Gemini, so this is my chart ruler, it's being the 12th house. So yeah, when I was like much younger, I really did find that I was just always dozing off in class. Like, I did not know why I was in school, really. Like, I really literally don't know why I'm in school. It was almost like I didn't even know what school was. I was just there in the classroom and there were all these people studying and I didn't know what to do. And the only thing that I could do in school was art. I was really good at art. But when I was studying other things, it was like I just did not get it. It was boring for me. But art, yay, I could do art. You know, that was when I was younger, like 7 or 8 years old. But of course, you know, when I grew up in middle school and high school, I finally understood that I'm supposed to study in school. But I think that, you know, the experience of that early childhood experience of not really understanding why I was going to school and being really lost in school kind of imprinted a certain shyness within me when I go to like learning types of situations. I don't like to speak up in classrooms. I prefer to just listen, and I don't raise my hand very much. I don't really give my opinions in classes because I don't know, it just doesn't, the energy just doesn't come out directly, you know, with Mercury in the 12th house. The speech doesn't come out quite directly when I'm put on the spot. Yes, I do find that because I grew up in a foreign environment. When I was 7, I went to school where in Norway, and I did not speak a word of English, like 0. And it was an international school, so everybody was speaking English, right? So growing up in that kind of an environment was really hard on my speech as well. So that kind of adds to this already shy nature where I just couldn't speak. Yeah, like literally I just couldn't say anything. And my teacher would ask me like, how are you? And I would be like, I don't know what she was saying. She would say, hello, Tan. And then I would be like, I didn't know what hello was. Yeah. So I was like the silent girl for so many years until I finally learned to speak English. And it's funny because now I feel like I'm more comfortable speaking English than speaking Thai. So I became more comfortable speaking a foreign language than a native language, and that foreign language is the one that I had so much trouble with when I was first going to school. It's just this weird, yeah, situation with Mercury in the 12th house. Yeah, and I do find that, you know, when I speak about things like compassion or love or 12th housey things, that I'm received better and it comes out better than when I'm trying to speak about politics or I don't know, other things. And also relationships, because the ruler of the 12th house, Neptune, is in my 7th house, which is actually a Venus ruled house, and Venus goes into my 12th house. So I can also speak about relationships well, but apart from that, the words it just comes out, it's just hard for the words to come out. And having Mercury conjunct Jupiter here, yes, I exaggerate a lot when I talk about these things, the relationships and 12th house things. Jupiter here is really interesting because I'm someone who has very vivid dreams. Like sometimes I would dream and I would be crying in the dream, and then I would actually be crying in my sleep as well. So I'd wake up with tears, and then I can remember the dream very well because, well, it's affected my psychology, my subconscious so deeply. Yeah, that's how my dreams are. And so the biggest impact that my actual dreams have had on me is that I once had this dream where I was eating elephants. I was in a restaurant where people were eating elephants and they were actually cutting the meat off of the elephant at the kitchen, and you can see them doing it. And the elephant was crying and stuff. And then in the dream I was also screaming and crying and telling them to stop cutting meat off of the elephant because the elephant is in pain, and I could see that. So anyways, yeah, so I was really fighting I was crying and screaming and wanting them to really stop cutting meat off of this elephant, but it didn't work in the end. So I woke up crying, of course, and I was really disturbed by this dream. And my dreams usually have symbols, or they usually tell me things about my life, and sometimes they actually happen in real life, but luckily this one didn't happen. But I was really trying to get to the symbolism of this dream. And it got me thinking about the food that I was eating at my table every day, like meat and things like that. So I did a bit of research on like slaughterhouses and how the meat that was in the farm came into my plate. And then I watched quite a lot of videos on like slaughterhouses and how they killed cows and pigs and chickens and things like that. And because, you know, Jupiter in the 12th house just expands that compassion, and also with Venus there, my compassion for the animals just went on overload. This has happened in 2017, okay? And I'm not saying that everybody has to feel compassion for animals and has to feel like what I was feeling, but this is my own personal experience, right? Yeah, so I was watching these videos, and for a week I was crying every day, non-stop, because I was just feeling so painful that these animals had to go through whatever they went through in the slaughterhouses. And I don't know, I was in a really low place, like sad and so much pain and so much heaviness, and so at the end of it, I decided to go vegan. So I stopped eating animal products and that kind of thing, because I couldn't look at a meat in my plate and still felt I had no more appetite for the meat that was in my plate. Yeah, so, you know, just my own personal experience of, you know, why I went vegan and that kind of thing. It was mainly for this reason. It wasn't for health reasons. It wasn't for environmental reasons. Those were just not strong enough. But this one experience, which was triggered from a dream that I had. This dream triggered my compassion, triggered all this kind of stuff that happened, and yeah, so it's not for everybody, I guess, but you know, something happened in my life, and this happened in my life, and I just can't eat meat anymore. Yeah, anyways. With Jupiter here, and Mercury in 12th, and Venus, I really like to be alone. I find a lot of peace in isolation. I need that time, that space at the end of the day where I'm just plugged into my earphones and listening to music and I'm zoning out. I need that. And also, you know, they say that Jupiter in the 12th house is the placement of guardian angels, and I do feel that a lot of events in my life happened in a way that saves me at a time when I needed the most saving. And I think I kind of just recently met my guardian angel. If you're watching this video, you know who you are. She's real. The guardian angel has come into my life, and she's real, and she's amazing. She's brought a lot of luck into my life at the time when I needed it the most. Thank you. Anyways, yeah, so that's my take on the 12th house. If you yeah, like I mentioned before, comment below what you've got going on in there. And yes, thank you very much. This is the end of the houses series. What do you guys want to see next? I'm still doing the Venus in the sign series, Venus in Synastry series, and I'm thinking of doing something like opposite signs, talking about that. But also I have another idea also about what is it? Oh, your chart ruler in the different houses and what that means for your life. So like, for example, if you have a, let's say, Aquarius rising, right? So your chart ruler would be Uranus and Saturn. So what happens when Uranus goes into each of the houses for your rising sign, for your Aquarius rising? Do you know what I mean? Anyway, so if you'd like to see anything on the channel, then please leave a comment below and let me know. I'll take all of what you request into consideration, and yeah, try to post useful videos for you guys out there. Thank you very much once again, and yeah, I'll see you very soon, guys. Bye.